Today, I'm pleased to introduce the session, which is AI breaks privacy and how PrivateGPT fixes it. So we have Daniel today, which is the co-founder of Zilon, which is a truly private AI workspace, which offers a self-contained AI solutions that runs within companies' infrastructure and that ensures data ownership and compliance. In previous phases of his career, he was working mostly on consumer-oriented products, spanning from mobile devices, IoT, robotics, 3D printings, and wearables. Later on, he assumed a leadership role at Amazon Business Delivery Experience organization, where he successfully formed and guided software engineering teams, steering the creation and delivery of impactful products on a global scale. Also impressive academic background, so he has a bachelor and master's degree in telecommunication engineering, as well as a PhD in proactive context-aware recommender systems, which allowed him to contribute to the ML domain with more than 20 research papers. Welcome, Daniel, and the stage is yours now.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Silly's team, for having me here and giving me the chance to talk to all your community. Thank you for the introduction. So yeah, let's jump directly into the slides that I have prepared for today. Let me check that everything works well. You can see my screen properly, right?
Perfect.
Cool. So as Stephen mentioned, I'm Daniel, co-founder and co-CEO of Cylon and PrivateGPT. Today we're going to talk about how AI breaks privacy, which is something that you might be a little bit surprised, taking into account that we are the owners of AI open source project and a product that is AI native also. And you might be wondering why I'm claiming this. But it's actually, that's the reason why PrivateGPT and Cylon were created. So let's go into that. I'm not gonna go over my background. Stephen already mentioned it pretty well. So yeah, pretty diverse. I have been a product engineer all my life, working on, but also have a really technical background. So yeah, we can discuss a lot of things in the question part. So what is the PrivateGPT? Let's start first with what's the project that brings me here today. PrivateGPT is an open source project that allows you to have a local and on-premise AI, basically to control everything and runs an LLM offline. And by doing that, you can leverage your private knowledge base, your documents, and talking to your documents in a completely private way, because you can execute PrivateGPT in your own laptop. So it's completely private, no data leak is possible. This project was launched in May 2023. Since then, it has been in the hot list of GitHub several times worldwide. As of today, it's basically the first open source project for privacy in AI. It's a reference, more than 53K GitHub star, more than 7K forks, a really healthy community, which by the way, I really appreciate the work that you do on a weekly basis, guys. You keep the project super alive, so thank you for that. And the Discord is always a really good place to be. So this is PrivateGPT. PrivateGPT was the seed for our commercial product, the one that we have built on top of the PrivateGPT technology, which is Cylon. And Cylon is a truly private AI workspace. We will understand today why I use the word truly. But what is Cylon in a nutshell? It's a all-in-one AI workspace that leverages your knowledge base, the company or organization knowledge base, to allow knowledge workers to write, synthesize, ideate, create, and co-create with partners along with the LLM, with Cylon Intelligent Agent. It's fully prepared for AI experience around projects and collaboration. So it's designed for the professional world with role and permission management, stuff like that. And everything, it's wrapped in a really UX friendly interface that it's also entirely deployed, all the layers from the LLM, the embedding model, the vector database, backend, frontend, everything. It's a software package that can be entirely deployed within the company infrastructure, making it 100% private. And again, this is something that we will understand better today. Because when we talk about privacy, especially in the new AI era, there is an interesting thing, which is If you go outside and you read about privacy in AI, basically everyone claims to be private. But it's interesting, this statement, because you need to dive deep a little bit in order to understand what is below the surface when they say they are private, because there are different levels of privacy, different granularities of privacy. And this is what we are going to be reviewing today. I want to provide you a complete overview of the different architectures, the different ways of solving AI applications for the B2B environment, especially in order to understand, next time you read we are fully private, you will understand, okay, this is the level of privacy that you're covering, or this other one. So let's jump directly into the different ways of understanding why this is a problem in AI. So the problem that all these products, including Cylon, want to solve is that AI breaks privacy, and breaks privacy in a simple way. Because at the end of the day, when you provide your data to AI platforms, you are basically opening your heart to these platforms. And we have read several news about, for example, OpenAI using the data that we put in ChatGPT to train their models, and later on people doing reverse engineering in order to extract such data. So the training data at the end that is used could be accessed by some techniques. And if we provide this data to this kind of platform, we are putting in risk our data. So basically, you're losing data sovereignty. When you think about companies that have a strong regulation over the data that they control, like healthcare or public government or defense, military, things like that, finance, legal, compliance is an important factor. And when you, as an engineer, as a technical or a product people in your company, you want to integrate AI services in your company, you need to think twice about the legal implications of doing so, because you might be breaking your compliance by using some tools. So it's important to understand the level of privacy that you need for your industry. And by doing so, it will be easier to pick the proper solution. So is this something that we should be concerned as of today? Yes. 1 year ago, the AI environment was completely different. The adoption of AI is brutal as of today. This is some numbers that a study from Microsoft and LinkedIn was shared a couple of months ago. Like 75% of knowledge workers are already using AI. And you could be thinking, okay, so 75 of these workers have already adopted some solution that is compliant with the company. Sadly, that's not the reality. We encounter this every day when we talk to our clients in Cylon. And majority of these companies, what they have done is that because of the privacy risk, they have banned the usage of some of these tools, especially the ones that are completely free or open, like, for example, ChatGPT for B2C. And the problem is that when you ban that kind of tools, usually employees create their own personal accounts behind the curtains and keep using them for company purposes, which is making the problem even worse, because basically you have completely out of control, or you have no control at all of how your company data is being used by your employees. And this is something that companies are finding on a daily basis, and this is a real problem. So let's try to understand what are the solutions that are outside and how you can understand the level of privacy and what is the solution that is most suitable for your environment. Because again, as I said before, everyone is claiming that the product is private. So let's dive deep a little bit in order to understand what's the actual privacy level that they comply with. The first one is what I call compliance SaaS, software as a service, which basically are products that have all or their infrastructure in a cloud architecture. And this cloud architecture might belong to them or might belong to others, in a sense that they can have their core business in a cloud managed by them, but then they can be using different third parties in order to implement different features of their AI application. The most interesting thing about this kind of products is that usually they are SOC 2, GDPR, HIPAA compliant, but this is not enough, because at the end of the day, these certifications usually refer to how you are managing the data in a procedural way. But when you are using third parties, you are losing some or part of your control about that, because you might be SOC 2, but your third parties might not be SOC 2. And in addition, even if your third parties are SOC 2 or GDPR compliant, you cannot control your third parties. So if your third parties have a data breach or have a security issue, you cannot fix it because basically you are not the owner of that third party. So basically your product is at risk because of others. And this is something that at the end of the day is making you losing control over the data that you are giving to these applications. So as you can see in the graphic, your data that is private is in red color. You are providing your data in a raw way to this AI SaaS provider, and this AI SaaS provider is copying your data and is distributing your data to other third parties for different purposes, like embeddings or ingestion or vector database or even inferencing. So all of this is basically generating copies of your data, and you are losing control of such data. And in addition to this, you need to trust all these third parties, and you need to trust this front-face company that is providing the AI service, that they are not using your data, for example, for training their own models or training their own systems. Of course, at the end of the day, this is a matter of trust. You can for sure trust them, and if you are okay with that, that's good. I'm not saying that these are bad options. I'm just saying that if you are tied to a specific regulation or compliance because of the data that you're using, again, healthcare, legal, defense, public government, you might not be using this kind of, or you will be completely, it would be illegal to use this kind of solution because you need full control of your data. So this is a kind of privacy level that you need to be aware when you use this kind of services. Like you can think about several of them in the industry. So let's move to the next one. The next one, it's an interesting evolution of this SaaS cloud-based approach, which is the data anonymization layer that is included in the architecture. So basically, when you have your data and you provide this to a service, if you put in a man in the middle that is in charge of anonymizing your data, that could solve part of the problem that we were discussing before. For example, let's think about a legal contract that you cannot disclose, you cannot share with others because of regulations. But maybe what you can do is anonymize the data within the document, the legal contract, by replacing names and numbers and dates by pseudonyms or by placeholders. And by doing that, you are anonymizing the document. So when you have the document already anonymized, and you can see here the change, you have your data in red, which is at risk when you share it. And then you have your data at blue, which is basically is anonymized. So from that point on, you follow the same pattern that you saw before in the previous architecture, and your data is going to be copied all around in all these services, but your data is going to be anonymized. So your this kind of services, this kind of third-party services, they're not going to be probably able to use your data to train their services because your data is anonymized, so they are losing that kind of contextual information. But, and here is the problem of this, you are achieving a greater level of privacy, but at some cost. First of all, you need to have this on-premise anonymization within your company, which is something that it's not a big problem, but it's something that you need to consider. But also you need to consider the loss of quality. And this is something that could happen because by the fact of anonymizing data, you might have less rich contextual data to provide to the LLM. And by doing that, the LLM might be providing worse results when executing the inferences. So it's important to understand this trade-off that you are investing because of achieving more privacy due to anonymization. You will be more protected, but your data generated by the LLM, the results generated by the LLM, might be worse or not as rich as when you are providing the full context. And this is a trade-off that you need to balance and understand when you go for these kind of solutions. And then there is an obvious risk, which is if the anonymization method, the anonymization process fails somehow, your data is completely exposed. And we go back to the previous model in which your data is being copied or copied by others in different third parties. So keep in mind this kind of trade-off, because at the end of the day, privacy or the level of privacy that you want to achieve is a matter of understanding the trade-off that you wanna go for. So let's go for the next one. The next one is local execution. And with local execution, at the end, what you are achieving is a solution in which the whole system is running in a controlled device, an isolated device. Let's, for example, use the example of PrivateGPT. You can, we will be talking more about PrivateGPT later, but if you have a personal device like a laptop, or a personal server that you have in your home that it's only used by you, you can run all the AI related logic, all the inferences. You can build all the layers related to have ChatGPT alike application in this personal device, and nothing is going to go outside. It's going to be 100% private, and actually you can even disconnect it from the internet, because an LLM doesn't need internet connection when has been set up. This could be an interesting solution, but as you might be already thinking, this is something that is not going to scale, because you need a really powerful device to have a really good experience, or to play AI at a scale. And this is a solution that provides you the maximum level of privacy, but sacrificing all the scalability and collaboration between peers in an environment. Because at the end of the day, you will have only that AI system running in a single machine, which again, you need to evaluate the trade-offs between going on a direction or another direction, which in this case is full isolation, full privacy. As you can imagine, in this case, your data is never copied to any other place, because your data remains in your device, in your server, or in your laptop, or in your smartphone. Let's move to the next one. The next one is the in-house development. And as you might be thinking, and actually this is an example that I can give you a lot of real examples from people that they have leveraged PrivateGPT to create their own in-house developments. And this is completely doable, because at the end of the day, if you create from scratch all the technology involved to have an AI system within your company by taking care of all the end-to-end development, this is something that is going to provide you full privacy, but at a cost that might not be feasible for majority of companies, because you will need to invest a significant amount of time, significant amount of money, and you will need to have a great team focused to build all the required technology and all the required features around this, because it's not just building the AI layers. You will need also a backend, a front end. You will need to develop your business logic around all the use cases around AI, all the pipelines. So it's not just setting up an LLM to be able to run simple inferences. You will need to develop a whole software product, and the implication of that is basically a really, really expensive project that only, in my experience, for those that want to have a system at a scale, it's only feasible for really, really large enterprises, because it relates to a really amount of, again, time, money, and focus from the company. The next option is literally the previous one, but instead of doing it by yourself, you pick a product that does this for you. And this is literally what, for example, we have done in Silent. So at the end, is the same as developing it by yourself, but the whole platform is provided by others. In this case, for example, this is what we do at Silent, and we are the only ones having all these layers in a single package that can be deployed in the infrastructure of our clients on a company or an organization. So at the end of the day, as you can see, what you have here is your private data. It's always protected. It's 100% private. There is no possibility for data leak, because your data remains within your infrastructure, because the whole system, in this case Cylon, or the whole product, AI product, lives and is running within your infrastructure. So at the end of the day, you can customize your isolation level, and you can go from your deploying this system within your private cloud, or you can deploy it in a bare metal in a data center. And you can even disconnect the data center from the internet, same case that we saw in PrivateGPT. So as you can see, this is kind of a PrivateGPT at real scale, at enterprise scale. The only drawback about this approach, because as I said, full privacy, all the features at your hand, the only drawback is that you will need your own infrastructure. You will need to manage your own private cloud or data center, because the only way to ensure 100% privacy is that you run it by yourself, because that way the company providing this service, for example, us, Cylon, we won't have even access to your data. So it will be completely managed by you. And by doing that, you would ensure complete 100% privacy. So these are the different levels that we can find when going for privacy in B2B applications. So from this point on, let's try to review what you can do with PrivateGPT, and then we will explore different setups to go for that for those different levels that I just shown you. And I will for sure use real examples of the components and modules that you will need to connect to PrivateGPT. So let's start first with PrivateGPT, going a little bit deeper of what is PrivateGPT, not just from a functional or user-facing point of view, but from an architectural point of view. So PrivateGPT, as I mentioned before, is a whole framework for developing context-aware applications with privacy in mind. And the idea of PrivateGPT is that we have leveraged a lot of open source components in the community in order to create a complete framework that can allow you to abstract yourself from the difficulties related to develop AI projects. So in this case, PrivateGPT expose a set of APIs for RAG primitives and for recipes that I will explain later what they are. We have built all of that on top of Llama Index, which is another open source from the community. And we also use a lot of pieces that are also in the open source or enterprise community, but you can leverage them. Like, for example, for the inference and for the inferencing part, you can use Llama, or you can use Llama CPP, or even Triton from NVIDIA. That is up to you, because at the end of the day, PrivateGPT is fully configurable. So you can, by just changing a YAML configuration file, you can decide which inferencing server to use. Then you can, by using the same method, you can leverage or use different large language models. You could be using Llama, or you could be using Mistral. So it's up to you. Actually, if you would like to use a private model like Claude or like OpenAI, you could do so, because PrivateGPT exposed a set of APIs that are based in the standard proposed by OpenAI more than a year ago. And it's as easy as disconnecting from your current OpenAI account and using PrivateGPT and setting up a different LLM below, and it will work just straight away. Of course, you can select your own embedding model, and of course, you can select your vector database. One of the databases, the vector database that is fully integrated with PrivateGPT is Milbus. So it's something that you can just use out of the box. So this is the general architecture of PrivateGPT. Let's go a little bit into more details. So how to build on top of PrivateGPT? In order to build on top of PrivateGPT, as I mentioned, we have a REST API that provides two different set of APIs. One is what we call the primitives API, and this is the building blocks that you will need in order to create a context-aware app following, as I said before, and extending the OpenAI API standard. And we have separated this API into levels. The high-level API for those that don't want to go into, the more obscure details of how to deal with LLMs and embeddings and so on. And in the high-level API, it's basically a ready-to-use RAG pipeline that you can use to ingest your own documents. And it's going to be taking care of parsing, splitting, creating the metadata of the different chunks, and it's going to take care of the embedding and the storage. And then you have also an API for chat and completions in order to give you the chance to create a full chat experience to talk to your documents. So it's going to be taking care of the contextual retrieval, the prompt engineering, and all the response generation. So pretty easy, just a simple REST API that is going to allow you to do that. If you want to go into more details, you want to customize even more what's the kind of components that you want to integrate in PrivateGPT, you can create your own RAG pipeline, and this is the low-level API. And this exposes you capabilities to play around with the embeddings generation. You can create your own algorithms to, or you can create your own logic for embedding and for ingesting documents. And also you can create your own logic for the contextual retrieval of chunks. So you can decide what is your strategy for both creating the chunks and then populating them with metadata or other attributes that you want to play around. And most recently, actually, this is something that we released a month ago, is the recipes API. The recipes API is out of the box set of AI native use cases that allows you to completely abstract in a higher level from the specific features one by one that I just mentioned, and you will go for a complete use case. In this case, we released a few weeks ago the summarize use case. And this is basically a use case that is going to allow you to summarize one or a set of documents into a single piece of text. And it's going to take care of all the generations of the different nodes in a three-way in order to move the context window to take into account how to, at the end of the day, summarize the final document or set of documents, because as you might imagine, depending on the LLM that you're using, your contextual window is not going to be enough to just put the whole document there. Let's imagine that you want to summarize a big book or several books. You might need to have different techniques to create different summaries that are being aggregated until you generate the final summary. This is what we do with recipes. We create the whole use case, and by using summarize API, you can do this out of the box. So this is the API, and you might be thinking, okay, do I really need to go through a REST HTTP methods to work with this? No, we have other options that are even easier for the community to leverage. First one, we have a Python SDK, which is something that the ML community is pretty used to. So we released beginning of this year the SDK, and we publish it as a PyPI library, so you can install it and use it, and it's gonna have the same REST API that I mentioned before, so it's gonna be super simple and straightforward to use. And if you want to move in a different direction and you want to, for example, develop your own website application, we have our TypeScript SDK, and exactly the same philosophy of the SDK for Python. It's a simple to use, fully mapping the REST API. We have published it as an npm library that you can install both the web component and the Node.js component. We have also a React adapter built in. So with this, as you can imagine, you can create your own application completely from scratch by leveraging the REST API. But you can also, if you already have an application in Python or in any web technology, you can use the TypeScript SDK or the Python SDKs, and it's going to accelerate a lot your development time. For those that maybe don't want to play around with the development, or that just want to test things in a really fast way or in a really local way, that you don't need to develop anything, you just want your own LLM or personal LLM at hand in your machine, I would totally recommend to use the Gradio UI client. It's available out of the box when you install and you deploy PrivateGPT in your machine. And it has the look and feel that you can see. It's a chat-based interface that is going to allow you to select what kind of LLM you want to run, what kind of inference server you want to run. In this case, for example, we are using Olama and the model is Mistral. And then you can query files, you can search files with a semantic search. You can also chat directly to the knowledge base that the LLM was trained with without incorporating any contextual information from your documents. But of course, the interesting thing here is to incorporate your documents. You will have here a way of managing the ingested files and remove them, or managing your library. And this is something that is pretty useful for those that don't want to maybe complicate too much with the technical details. So this is again an out-of-the-box way of using PrivateGPT in your computer. Okay, so with this, you have an overview of how PrivateGPT can be leveraged for different, for how PrivateGPT works and what features PrivateGPT offers to you from a developer or development perspective. So now what I want to do is kind of mix what I just told you and the different level of privacy that I mentioned before, and see how PrivateGPT can cover some of them. The extreme case of PrivateGPT covering the most private way is Cylon, because in Cylon we literally develop a whole product in the last year on top of PrivateGPT. But we will see how to evolve this little by little with a couple of cases. So let's go first with the local execution that I mentioned before. So the local execution, as I said, is the most private way of interacting with an LLM, because all your data will remain in your computer or your server, that is if it's a machine that you have at home, and it's up to you to even connect it to the internet. So the moment you install everything that we are seeing in the picture, you will have complete control over the data that you have in your local setup. So you could even disconnect it from the internet. What's a common architecture that we recommend from PrivateGPT to go and explore this kind of use cases, this kind of local execution? Our recommendation would be to use Ollama as the inference server. Ollama is going to simplify a lot how to configure your GPU, how to integrate the LLM. Actually, Ollama already has pre integration with different LLMs, like for example Mistral or Llama 3.1. So you are going to have a lot of options there, and it's going to be pretty easy. It has an installer for desktop, which is super easy to go. So that would be my recommendation for those wanting to just try this in a local execution and leverage the power of LLMs in a complete private way. Then for the models, I would go as of today for Llama 3.1, 8 billions, but it's up to you guys. Yesterday or the day before, Mistral released a 12 billion multimodal model in order to work with both text and images. So it's up to you to go for what you prefer. Then for the vector database, you could use, for example, Milbus Lite, which is a really lightweight way of having your own vector database without complicating too much the installation. Pretty straightforward to install. The documentation is pretty neat. And for the embedding models, for sure, you could select among a really big amount of embedding models, but we usually recommend Nomic in this case. But up to you guys. Again, you can go to Hugging Face, check the embedding models. It will also depend on the languages that you want to support. If you want to support English, or you want to support Spanish or French or Arab, you have a lot of interesting ways of understanding how to select the purpose of your AI system, taking into account the embedding model that you are selected. Because at the end of the day, the embedding model is going to be the one responsible for transforming your data into embeddings that the LLM is going to play around later on. On top of that, PrivateGPT is going to be actually wrapping everything. And as I said before, the Gradio UI client is the easiest way to go. But if you want to play around with your own Python client or web client, it's up to you. It's super easy to go. Even you can manage it by console, so pretty easy. The infra needed for this, because this is a common question that we receive, you can do this with a commercial laptop, but you need to understand that you need at least a minimum amount of power, especially regarding the GPU, in order to run this. On the other hand, you also need some RAM in order to put the models at work. So a recommendation from our side, actually is the one that I'm using, is a MacBook Pro M3. I know it's not a cheap laptop, but it's not also a super expensive one. So it's something that you can go and everything is gonna work pretty good with a good quality and good response time. If you move to a different execution, let's say this time a cloud execution, because you want your private GPT instance to be accessible from anywhere, I would recommend you to go for a setup like this. And a setup like this basically is going to be, you will need a cloud infrastructure. And this, in order to do so, you will need a cloud instance in which you will deploy the same services that I mentioned before. For sure, you can split this into different cloud instances, but the simplest architecture will be to have Olama, Milbus. In this case, I will go for Milbus standalone, which is already prepared for with a Docker image. So it's gonna be pretty easy to install in your instance if you have Docker there. And we totally recommend to have Docker there. Actually, we have our own PrivateGPT Docker image. So you can put this in the instance, in this cloud instance. And also, for example, for the sake of exploring other ways of using PrivateGPT, you could have your Node.js server in order to have a web client using the TypeScript web client for having PrivateGPT in a website flavor. By doing that, you will be able to access at the same time from different devices and remotely from your laptop or your smartphone or whatever you have. And the interesting thing here is that, again, as I said before, you can break this into pieces. You can put the Node.js and the web client in a different server just to serve all the web part, and you could have the rest of the components more AI related into a different instance. But for the sake of simplicity, let's keep it that way. But one thing that could be really super interesting in order to scale up, because at the end, the constraint when we were discussing about the local execution was the power associated to your laptop or to your local machine. So the way to scale this up is to basically leverage a cloud-based provider of models. And I'm using these specific words because you are not using an API token-based service from, for example, OpenAI, which, by the way, you could. What I'm proposing here is to deploy your own models in your own Amazon for SageMaker. And I'm saying Amazon SageMaker, you have other options that we are used to work with Amazon for obvious reason. I was there for several years. But in any case, the thing is that the embedding model and the LLM, you can serve them through Amazon SageMaker. By doing that, you are the one controlling that no one is able to spy your data because you are serving your own models. You are controlling this cloud infrastructure. So privacy remains. That's the important thing here. Remember that. So by having your, for example, AWS Cloud Infra, you will have one cloud instance running the services that I mentioned before, and another, let's call it instance of SageMaker, providing you the LLM and the embedding that is going to be connected to PrivateGPT for doing the whole AI operation. So this is a nice setup that will allow you to scale. And of course, if you ask me what will be the next step, Danny, so the next step is clearly obvious. The next step is you need to scale this up. And in order to do that, you might need to include things like load balancers. You might need different inference services in order to be able to have concurrency in the request. You will need to manage also pipelines of requests from the users if you want to really scale this up for different users. And this will be up to you, to be honest. I haven't proposed here a specific architecture because as you saw, let me go back in this slide. For example, this is a snapshot of what we have, a really simplified one of what we have in Cylon. And in Cylon, we have our GPU management and inference server. On top of that, we have our LLM, our vector database, the ingestion service, and the OCR service for managing image-based documents. On top of that, we have Cylon GPT, which is at the end of the day, private GPT on steroids, something that we have been, developing for concurrency, for cache, for real-time execution, for having more complex data pipelines, something that could work at scale for a bigger company or organization. And on top of that, we have all the APIs from the Cylon platform. And from that point on, it's up to you the kind of product that you want to be, because that will be defined by your use cases, by the value prop that you want to provide to your customers. And that's going to determine the business logic living in the backend. That's going to define the user experience that you will have at the UI layer, the customer facing layer. So as you can see, this is the way that you can scale up from PrivateGPT. And this is literally what we did. We started with PrivateGPT 1 year ago, and we scale up by scale up horizontally and vertically in complexity, because you need to take into account a lot of things when you want to serve hundreds or thousands of users. So let me close up now. We have, I want to save some time for questions. So then the main conclusion here today is keep in mind that when someone tells you, I have an AI product that is private, that could mean different things. And we have seen today that there are at least 5 levels of privacy that you need to take into account, or that you can try to reach. And the important thing here is to understand the trade-off between privacy and the required effort or investment that you want to put on top of the table. Because if you're a company or organization living in a really regulated world with hard compliance, dealing with sensible data, it's important for you to be aware of what happens when you go for simple SaaS services that are leveraging a lot of third parties that is going to put your data completely out of control if something happens. So it's important for these kind of scenarios to understand what's the granularity of the privacy that you need. Of course, if you are a standalone developer at home that you want to play around with LLMs, or you want to allow your colleagues to collaborate in a small environment, I would totally recommend to go for the cloud execution or the cloud architecture that I just presented, because it's something that is easy to build and pretty nice to play around. Again, be aware of the privacy level and trade-off, and do the balance between privacy and the investment and effort you require. And with that, I'm closing. Just thank you people for being there. And just a kindly reminder from my background, we have 2 projects in our company. We have PrivateGPT, which is the open source project, which probably majority of you know. And we have Cylon, which is the commercial solution, the on-premise platform, all-in-one workspace for AI. So if you have any interest on both or in one of them, please reach me out either by Discord or by email. It will be a pleasure for me to answer your questions. So thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was very interesting, actually. I'll just follow up. We have already one question in the chat from Justin. So it's actually related to Cylon. So how does it work? I'll just read it out loud. So it's like, how does it work? So do you need to send your data to Cylon, or is Cylon acting on your data at rest in your infrastructure? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. No, you don't need to send anything to Cylon, because at the end of the day, Cylon runs within your company or within your private infrastructure. So you can think about Cylon as all-day software that you buy in a board box, and the moment you install it, it's yours. So it's running in your infrastructure. You don't need to actually, we don't want to deal with your data, because it's part of the privacy level that we offer. You are the one controlling 100% your data, and it's always in your infrastructure.
Cool, thank you. And we have another question. So it's using OpenAI embeddings in the case of OpenAI. So does that mean the data is going to go to OpenAI and will be stored in any way there?
I'm not sure to which part this question refers, but if it refers to Cylon, not at all. We don't use any third parties at all. But if you go, okay, I'm reading you.
Yes.
It uses not Cylon. So if you go for example, this or these setups, no, it's not going for OpenAI. You don't need OpenAI at all for applying embedding models. All the for example, the local execution everything is in your machine. So you can disconnect this from the internet and it's going to work because the embedding model it's running in your laptop. So same philosophy as actually I like to do this reflection. Like PrivateGPT was the first project being able to run all the infrastructure of a ChatGPT alike application in your laptop, completely private, even without internet connection. Cylon does the same at the enterprise level. So you don't need any third parties at all. And if you need anything, is to download these models that are open source. But that's something that you can download and use it without leveraging on any third party.
And yeah, there's a follow-up question. So you can set it up locally for any company in your organization, and you just only need the infra and the services, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
Both in PrivateGPT and Cylon. Of course, PrivateGPT is a more basic product, more oriented to developers to build on top of it. Cylon is out of the box, ready to go.
cool. Thank you. And actually, I have a question as well, which is, how does it work for like multimodal in general? Is it like, does it work locally or like how does it work?
I mean, the answer would be, is your infrastructure powerful enough to run these kind of models? If the answer is yes, PrivateGPT will work. It's up to you, of course, to modify the interface, the user interface, I mean, in order to support this kind of uploading of images and understanding the images that the model is returning to you. And the same goes for Cylon. In Cylon, actually, what we do is, depending on the client we interact with, some clients, they prefer to remain with the small models because they are, it's a good balance between cost and efficiency. Some of them, they prefer to go for bigger models and multimodal models. So it's up to you. At the end of the day, it's fully configurable. So it's just easy for us to just connect one or the other.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And we have another question as well. So in PrivateGPT, when it's on the cloud infrastructure, can multiple users use it at the same time and have separate chats?
That's a really good question. No, if you use the out of the box PrivateGPT, because PrivateGPT doesn't understand about users or sessions. This is something that we haven't provided in ChatGPT because this is part of your use case. It depends on the use that you're gonna it depends on the use case or the scenario that you want to cover with PrivateGPT. You will need users or not. So it's up to you to build all the sessions and user layer. In Cylon, for sure. In Cylon, we have all the user layer, we have roles, we have permissions, we have granularity to select and to decide who can access what. So that's kind of the work that we have been doing in parallel to keep evolving PrivateGPT. And by the way, you could do it if you put several PrivateGPT in parallel, you could do it. That's up to you. They can actually reuse the same inference server. It's just having different PrivateGPTs from a client face point of view.
Okay. And yeah, someone check your documentation. So in the documentation, it says that the RAG pipeline is based on Llama Index. Why did you choose Llama Index? And can the same be done with LangChain?
Yeah, this is a really nice question. To be honest, we started with Llama Index. If you go to, sorry, with LangChain, we were super in contact with Harrison by that time. But at some point, we decided to move to Llama Index because the kind of use cases that we wanted to cover with PrivateGPT and Cylon were easier to cover with Llama Index. And since then, we decided to keep that way. Actually, we collaborate a lot with Jerry and the team from Llama Index. So it's something that we decided 1 year ago, or maybe less than a year ago. But yeah, we started with LangChain. We moved to Llama Index. It was a design decision because of the use cases that we wanted to cover. Llama Index by that time, I'm not talking today, but by that time, it was providing us a better support for the use cases that we wanted to cover, and that was the decision. No specific one.
Ooh, thank you. And I have a follow-up question to this one. Have you tried out Llama Agent?
Not yet.
Okay.
This is something that we were discussing also about the Llama workflows. This is another thing that we are already using internally, but not the agents for now.
Okay.
But it's something that is in our.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Otherwise, I have one follow-up one, which is, so you have
Yep.
more than 50K stars. How do
Mhm.
people contribute? How can they contribute to Private GPT if they want to?
I mean, we have a roadmap published in the GitHub page, so you can go there and pick the different project lines that we have, or you can propose a new one. We are pretty flexible. I can tell you that on the last quarter we merged more than a dozen pull requests from people outside our team. But also we have still we are the major contributors, so that's a normal thing, I guess. But we are basically collaborating every day. I just today, for example, I talked to my front-end engineer that was yesterday supporting a guy asking some question about how to use Remix to deploy PrivateGPT, and he was providing him a full POC to start from that. So we are pretty connected. So I would say that either you go to the GitHub page and pick something that is there, or you go to the Discord channel and say, hey, I have this idea. I want to work on this, and we can give you advices, or maybe saying to you, hey, we're already working on that. Let's collaborate and let's do it together. We have a pretty healthy, actually, that's exactly what we did with Milbus. Milbus came to us and they say, hey, we want to integrate Milbus in PrivateGPT, and we collaborate together over a week, and the integration was pretty smooth.
Yeah, cool. And follow-up question. So someone learned about React a few months ago and they wanted to build with Private GPT. And apparently you have really good information and documentation. So kudos for that. It's really
Thank
hard.
you.
Like, as someone that works in the open source world, it's very hard to have good documentation. So
Thank you
good
for
job.
that. A lot of effort
Yeah, I can
invested in
imagine.
that. Difficult
But
to keep things up to date.
yeah. Cool. Any more questions from people? Otherwise, we can wrap up. And yes, okay. So we have. So I'm a student at the moment, not a pro at coding, but I'm interested in the idea of AI, and especially locally running AI. So is Xylon and Private GPT better for entering the scene as a beginner?
I mean, the obvious reason here is PrivateGPT is your it should be your choice because PrivateGPT is the open source project. As Stephen was saying, you have all the documentation there to play around, different setups, the ones that I explained today, the ones that you can find in the documentation. Go for that for sure. I mean, we have a lot of students and researchers leveraging PrivateGPT for their own projects, so it's a really nice project to play around because. And I didn't go into much detail on that, but you will see the documentation. We have put a lot of software engineering mindset when developing it. So we have a lot of components that you can customize. So it's really easy to configure. You have different YAML files in order to configure things in a pretty neat way without actually coding anything.
Cool. Thank you very much. Yes, so I think we'll wrap up here. So the recording will be shared. Also, the slides will be shared as well with the recording. So no worries, everyone. You'll have everything. Thank you again, Daniel, for this amazing presentation.
My
It was
pleasure.
really cool and very
My
interesting.
pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for attending, and see you in the next one.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Bye-bye.